Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are stepping into a high-stakes arena, mastering the Cambridge AS Level Afrikaans Language 8679 exam. If you're aiming for those top-tier marks, you already know that simply memorizing vocabulary lists is only half the battle. The real challenge, the exact place where elite students separate themselves from the rest of the pack, is in the essay topics. Specifically, we are going to look at the three major themes: sport, free time activities, and travel and tourism. We are going to deconstruct the precise strategies you need to conquer these topics, using direct, unfiltered insights from the principal examiners themselves. We will dissect complex questions, master your time allocation, deploy critical thinking strategies, and analyze peer problem solving. So get ready to focus, grab your digital highlighters, because this is your definitive masterclass in exam strategy.
Okay, let's dive straight into this by addressing the massive elephant in the room. You can have flawless Afrikaans grammar, an impeccable, wide-ranging vocabulary, and still completely miss out on an A-star. Why does this happen? Because as this quote directly from a senior examiner reveals, marks are almost always lost due to poor strategy rather than poor language skills. It all comes down to how deeply you understand the specific framework of these essay topics. Examiners are looking for a very particular kind of reasoning and structure when you write about sport, free time, or tourism. If you do not play by their rules, your brilliant vocabulary absolutely will not save you. Let's look at the anatomy of a command word to understand this. Imagine a high-tariff, 15-mark question on the board right now that says, evaluate the extent to which ecotourism benefits coastal communities in South Africa versus the environmental cost. Notice the command word is evaluate, not explain. Explain just asks for a basic descriptive process. Evaluate demands a deeply critical judgment. It requires you to weigh the economic benefits against ecological damage and then provide a justified, synthesized conclusion. Furthermore, you have to watch out for the hidden constraints. The prompt specifically says coastal communities, not the whole country. If you write a brilliant, linguistically perfect essay about tourism in the inland mountains, you score 0 for content. You have to isolate the command word, map out the required content knowledge, and strictly obey the hidden constraints of the prompt.
And that brings us to the critical question we are going to frame this entire explainer around. Why do students find multi-stage analysis and method marks so hard? It is a recurring, painful theme in every single principal examiner report year after year. Students constantly hit a brick wall because they are treating these advanced essays like simple translation exercises or basic creative writing prompts. Let me be absolutely clear, they aren't. They are rigorous, multi-stage analytical tasks designed to test your highest-level cognitive processing. By the end of this session, you are going to understand exactly how to navigate this complexity. We are going to completely rewire how you approach the exam paper so you can secure every single one of those elusive method marks.
To get us to that elite level, we have a clear, strategic playbook for today's session. We are covering 1. The examiner's lens. 2. 3 core cognitive domains. 3. The method mark strategy. 4. Top examiner warnings. 5. Mastering critical analysis. And 6. The exam strategy checklist.
Let's start with Section 1, the examiner's lens.
To absolutely crush this exam, you have to fundamentally change your perspective. You must think exactly like the person grading your paper. And that brings us to the method mark strategy. This is an assessment approach where marks are awarded for the explicit process of systematic analysis and evidence-based reasoning, not just your final conclusion. Think of it like a massive math problem where you have to show all your working out. This means if you write a beautiful, sweeping essay about tourism in South Africa, but you just list a bunch of interesting facts without explicitly showing a logical, step-by-step analysis, you will lose massive amounts of points. The examiner desperately wants to see exactly how you arrived at your conclusions. They reward the transparent process of deduction. This explicit showing of your analytical work, step by agonizing step, is exactly where top-tier students secure their marks, while average students get left behind.
Moving on to Section 2, the 3 core cognitive domains.
You cannot just be good at one single thing. You need an incredibly balanced approach to conquer these exams. The assessment framework targets 3 equal cognitive domains that you must demonstrate complete competence in: knowledge and understanding, analysis, and evaluation. To really break this down, let's step into a collaborative digital study suite and imagine a peer conversation between 2 typical scholars working on the exact same high-tariff question about the economic impact of major sporting events. We will call our first scholar Alex. Alex is highly technical, deeply loves formulas and hard facts, but completely struggles with open-ended evaluation. Alex looks at the prompt and immediately wants to dump every single statistic about ticket sales and stadium construction costs onto the page. Alex is hyper-focused on the first domain, knowledge and understanding. On the other side of the digital desk, we have Sam. Sam is a highly creative thinker, incredibly strong at building sweeping arguments, but struggles immensely with structural precision and strict timing. Sam ignores the hard data and immediately starts writing a passionate philosophical argument about how sports bring communities together. Sam is leaning entirely into the evaluation domain, but without any factual anchor. If we let them debate, Alex will argue that an essay without statistics is just an opinion piece and will score poorly. Sam will fire back that an essay with only numbers is just a textbook and shows zero independent thought. The genius of the Cambridge marking scheme is that both Alex and Sam are right and both are wrong. You absolutely must hit all three domains. You must have Alex's hard facts, but you must subject those facts to deep analysis and ultimately run them through Sam's critical evaluation. The framework explicitly prioritizes this analytical depth over superficial breadth. They would much rather see you deeply evaluate 2 specific points than superficially list 10 scattered facts.
That brings us perfectly to Section 3, the method mark strategy.
With those cognitive domains firmly planted in our minds, let's get into the procedural framework required to actually capture these method marks. There are incredibly strict conventions you absolutely must follow. Let's look back at our scholars, Alex and Sam. Let's say they are given a data interpretation task based on a complex table showing a sharp decline in youth participation in traditional free time activities versus a massive spike in digital gaming. Alex, being the technical scholar, just extracts the raw numbers and writes them into sentences. But the required action for data interpretation is not just to copy and paste information. You must extract data from the provided texts or tables, interpret the hidden relationships between those different pieces of data, and draw profound, evidence-based conclusions. Sam points out that they need to explain why the shift is happening, perhaps linking it to urbanization or technology costs. Then comes the presentation aspect, which is incredibly rigid. You must use proper headings, highly appropriate Afrikaans terminology, correct structural formats, and clear, undeniable annotations. If the exam question asks you to write a formal proposal for a new community sports center and you just write a standard 5-paragraph essay, you are literally throwing away all your professional skills marks. Alex wants to skip the headings to save time. Sam wants to draw a creative logo. Neither is the correct path. You must adhere strictly to the precise, formal conventions dictated by the Cambridge syllabus.
Now we move to Section 4, Top Examiner Warnings.
Before we tackle the hardest part of our problem solving today, I need to completely pause this session. If you are serious about transforming your grades and mastering these elite strategies, you need to subscribe to the channel Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at the handle @acetheexam_IGCSE right now. Go ahead and click that subscribe button appearing on your screen and make sure you enable all notifications by hitting the bell icon so you never miss a single weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategy. Okay, let's get right back into it. Straight from the principal examiner reports, here are the top 3 fatal traps that cost brilliant students crucial marks year after year. Number 1, answers are way too vague. When discussing travel and tourism, simply stating tourism brings a lot of money to the country is entirely too vague. Examiners demand highly specific details. How does ecotourism specifically impact the microeconomics of local coastal villages? Number 2, forgetting to thoroughly check format and presentation conventions, which we just debated with Alex and Sam. And number 3, which is unquestionably the most destructive error, answers are not remotely specific to the given context. Let's watch Alex and Sam actively draft a model response paragraph by paragraph on our screen to see this in action. They're tackling a prompt about a lack of funding for rural sports facilities. Alex drafts a paragraph listing the general health benefits of daily cardiovascular exercise. Sam adds a sentence about how sports make people happy. Suddenly, they hit a massive roadblock. They realize their paragraph is going absolutely nowhere and has no linking structure. Let's use our picture-in-picture feature to pause their session, step in, and explain the cognitive strategy we need to use to get them unstuck. The crucial point here is entirely avoiding the classic mistake of providing generic, prepackaged answers. Alex and Sam essentially memorized an essay on the general benefits of sport and just regurgitated it onto the digital page, completely ignoring the prompt. The A-star approach requires actively linking every single point specifically to the given scenario. So let's rewrite their flawed section out loud right now, transitioning from a mediocre answer to a flawless, full-mark response. Instead of saying, exercise is good for the heart, we write, the severe lack of funding for rural sports facilities directly deprives isolated communities of essential cardiovascular health interventions, fundamentally widening the healthcare inequality gap between urban and rural populations. Do you see the profound difference there? We took the basic concept of health, contextualized it to rural funding, and elevated the vocabulary. Context is your absolute anchor. Without it, your essay drifts away from the marks.
Let's step up to Section 5, Mastering Critical Analysis.
I am speaking directly to you now for an immersive, interactive workshop segment. This is where you unlock the absolute highest tariff marks available in the entire exam. I am displaying a complex text excerpt on the interactive holographic smartboard right now regarding government investment in free-time arts programs versus sports infrastructure. We are putting a 60-second visual countdown timer on the screen. I want you to read the excerpt and mentally decide if the text is descriptive or evaluative. Notice the stark, undeniable contrast between a descriptive and an evaluative approach. The descriptive level is merely stating facts. Writing, "The government spends 50 million rand on sports and 10 million rand on arts" is entirely mediocre. The evaluative level is exactly what examiners crave. This means systematically questioning underlying assumptions, deeply considering radically different perspectives, and rigorously justifying your final decisions with concrete evidence. Instead of just stating the spending facts, an evaluative approach argues why the heavy investment in sports infrastructure might yield a faster economic return through event hosting, while simultaneously exploring the counterargument that neglecting arts programs diminishes long-term cultural heritage. You then come to a highly justified, nuanced conclusion based strictly on the provided text.
A massive, non-negotiable part of that evaluative level is comparative analysis. So here is your visual question number 2. We call this Spot the Flaw. I am displaying a poorly written student answer comparing domestic and international tourism. The student wrote, "International tourists spend more money. Domestic tourists travel more often." Your task is to find the missing components based on our masterclass rules. Let's systematically highlight and annotate this screen to dissect the correct path. First, the student completely failed to identify similarities. They only looked at differences. Second, they used zero comparative connectives. You must use explicit linguistic signposts in Afrikaans to signal your logic to the examiner. Third, they offered zero evidence to support their claims. And finally, the ultimate trap set by examiners, they left the comparison completely hanging. You must draw definitive conclusions about the relative importance of what you just compared. Which economic factor carries more critical weight for the country's GDP and exactly why? That is how you execute a flawless comparative analysis.
Finally, we reach Section 6, our exam strategy checklist. Looking back at our digital study suite, Alex realizes that raw facts are useless without a framework, and Sam realizes that grand arguments collapse without structural precision. They have had a massive breakthrough. Let's synthesize this entire exhaustive masterclass into 3 core unforgettable pillars that power this 5-step checklist. Pillar number 1 is the 3-step question scan. You must meticulously identify the core elements of the prompt, isolate the command word, and map the exact context. Pillar number 2 is the paragraph balance formula. You must apply relevant principles by perfectly balancing knowledge, analysis, and evaluation in every single paragraph, executing your analysis with incredibly clear working. And pillar number 3 is the last 5 minutes review checklist. You must verify your results to ensure your evaluation actually answers the specific question asked, and rigorously confirm that you have presented your final product in the exact, appropriate format required by the syllabus. If you follow this standardized, rigorous sequence every single time you sit down to write, you will systematically eliminate the fundamental errors that plague average papers.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought. Understanding high-level strategy is fantastic, but ruthless execution is absolutely everything. How will you apply this systematic sequence to your very next past paper practice? Remember, crushing Cambridge exams doesn't just require hard work, it requires relentlessly consistent strategy. You need to stop just learning the Afrikaans language and start learning the complex logic behind the Cambridge assessment engine. I am challenging you right now to take this framework and completely dominate your next essay. Before you go, hit that subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at the handle @acetheexam_IGCSE. Forcefully turn on the notification bell so you are armed with our future exam hacks, and go down to the comments right now and declare your target grade. Put it in writing. Thank you for joining me for this Elite Explainer. Keep pushing your limits, and I will see you in the next strategy session.